Hi, writers. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about a change we're going to make for Essay 3. So, originally, we had been going to continue with the Hygge and happiness theme and have you write about cause and effect. But in talking to some of you, it sounds like maybe we're exhausting the happiness topic, and I feel a little stuck myself. So, we are changing direction, and we are going to ask you instead to write a media critique essay. So this basically means you are going to pick some form of media that you enjoy, whether that is music, film, television, video games, artwork such as paintings, and you are going to write a critique of a type of media. So let's say you are interested in working on uh, writing a critique of a TV series that you really like or that you really dislike. You are going to analyze the different components of that piece of media and try to add some depth into your analysis. In an upcoming video, I will record a more of an overview of the difference between a review and a critique, but basically a review is kind of a summary of what happens in the art and whether the reviewer would recommend it or not. Whereas a critique is more of a breaking down the piece of media by its parts and really analyzing what's effective, what's not, thinking about things like, is it representative of the time it was created? Is it innovative? Is it unique? Does it push boundaries? How and why? So you are going to pick whatever type of media you're drawn to. For me, because I'm an English major and an English teacher, it would be something like a piece of literature. And pardon my cat, it would be a poem or a novel or a play or a short story. And I will provide some literary analysis essays because I have those in my repertoire, and I will try to find some media critiques that are more in line with things like film or music. And you are going to do a little bit of research, possibly on when it was created, how it was created, who created it, when it was published. So, for instance, if you're really into the Rolling Stones have put quite a few albums out, and you might want to critique their first or second or third album. Um, you might then also be able to compare it to newer works. Sometimes the first few albums of an artist are their strongest. They tend to make changes and alter things. Sometimes those first few albums are the most popular. Why is that? Uh, if you're critiquing something like a TV series, you might start to think about, okay, is this TV series created as a result of something happening in our world? Was there an event that happened historically that prompted people to want to watch this type of programming? Consider the fact that right now we're living in a pandemic, and I know that there are some artists who are working on creating pieces that speak to that moment of what it's like to live through a modern pandemic. I know Bo Berman on Netflix did an entire show about the life of somebody living alone during a pandemic. So you could critique something like that and say, is it representative of how we all feel? Is it representative of this moment of anxiety and angst that we're all having? So those are some things to think about. So you might want to do a little bit of research on the artist if you don't know a ton about who they are. Think about the year or decade in which it was published. Think about how it was received. So, for instance, Van Gogh, when he painted, he died poor. He wasn't popular, and it wasn't until after his death that he gained popularity. So, just because something was published or created at the time doesn't mean that people were receptive to it. And that is also one of the advantages of a critique, is that you're doing things that may have been in existence for decades, if not hundreds of years. Reviews are often more done for things that just come out. So, a new movie is out, you kind of want to know if you want to watch it, you listen to a review and like, oh, it's worth my time or it's not worth my time. A critique is digging deeper and digging into things that maybe have been around far longer. So do some research on the piece itself, and then as you get into the body of the essay, the part where you critique or analyze the work, you are thinking about how it fits into the genre. So if you're talking about, again, A TV series, TV series are usually episodes of 30 to 60 to 90-minute long series or episodes. And the series might be 6 to 9 to 12 to 20 episodes per series. Is it comparable to other types of TV series in its genre, whether that's investigative reporting or drama or comedy? And then does it have any blind spots, meaning are there things that it doesn't quite see that don't represent things well? This can be rich for opportunities to analyze things like the representation of people um, as far as gender expression, racial expression, ability, disability, class. When I think about class, I immediately go to the old school Roseanne show. It was one of the shows that kind of depicted a lower class working family struggling to make ends meet versus, something like 90210, which was all about Beverly Hills teenagers who had lots of money. So consider what kind of type of person it's trying to depict and whether it's realistic or more stylistic. And then if you are looking at something that has multimedia, so it's not just a painting, it has actual sound and color. Think about like when you think of films, the use of color, the use of music, the absence of music, or quiet moments. Um, a lot can be said in nonverbals in films and TV series. So whereas it's not always dialogue driven, it can just be a person looking at somebody meaningfully, and that can convey a lot in the show. So the other component is ethos, pathos, logos. We do this when we do rhetorical analyses, oftentimes of print media, but we're looking at the credibility of the person who created it or the actors in it or the singer. We're looking at the use of emotion. Emotion draws us in, makes us want to feel things. Some, think about all the sad songs that are just these heart-rending calls of distress and passion and grief, and what makes them work or not work. And then is there logic or reasoning? And this might be less important when you're dealing with things like art and creativity. But in order for us to stay engaged with something like a TV series, I know for me, the plot has to make sense. I have to find the characters relatable or interesting. And if it gets too silly or off the rails, I stop watching. So think about those type of things as you consider what sort of work you want to analyze. We are going to ask this one to be 3 to 5 pages. We're going to ask that you also try to formalize your language a little bit more. So rather than using I, me, my, which is first person, or you, your, which is second person, you're going to take a little more distance and act as like the academic critiquer, if you will, and use he, she, they, them. And you are going to have at least 2 types of research incorporated. It might be the work itself. So if you're analyzing the lyrics of an entire album by your favorite artist, you will likely be quoting from that album and need to cite that. And then you might also consider doing some historical research and or reading reviews of what other people have said about the piece. I would caution you when you do that, though, if you read reviews first before you write your piece, you might be tempted to be swayed to their point of view or want to emulate what they've done. So if you're going to read reviews, do it after you've written some so that you have your own fresh ideas, because we're interested in your perspective on the piece and not necessarily what other people said. Where it would come in handy is if you were to contrast, like let's say Roger Ebert and his team, because I know he's no longer living, but he still has an institution that does reviews of movies. Let's say that maybe he gave a movie 4 stars and just raved about it. And then you come into the movie and you're like, I don't get it. It doesn't hold true. It doesn't live up well to the times. The acting is not great, and here's why. So you could maybe reference the Roger Ebert review and say, this is why I think it's wrong. So that would be an example of a proper way to use a review. So we're still kind of working out the details of what this will look like. This is a rough draft, but this will be your highest point assignment. It's a 100-point essay. And hopefully this reinvigorates your writing and your interest. I know that both Erin and I had assignments like this when we were in college and enjoyed doing them. So start to think about what you want to analyze, what you're currently watching, reading, consuming, listening to, and have some fun with thinking about how you can break apart the piece that you're going to analyze. So more details to come, a video to come, and we look forward to what you guys come up with. Thanks.